welcome to the Sweaty Dive podcast. I am one half of your host, known as Buff Charmander, joined as always by my good pal KG.
Yo.
And this month we are back to discuss Air, the film about Nike, I guess spoiler warning, kind of. Nike signing their biggest athlete ever, objectively speaking, even subjectively, Michael Jordan. The process of that happening, the landscape of Nike and the sportswear world in the 80s, and the people that were involved in that, including Michael's family and key figures over at Nike Basketball and other branches of Nike as well. KG, this is a movie directed by Ben Affleck, someone who you and I are pretty big fans of. I kind of love it when Ben gets behind the lens. I famously love Argo. It's one of my favorite Affleck joints. I am also extremely sad that we will never get to see a Ben Affleck directed Batman movie.
Yeah, I see that's never going to happen.
But it's never going to happen, but man, it would have been really good. I just believe that. Oh, well. I guess I'll start off by asking, real quick, number one, spoiler warning. We go full spoilers on this podcast. And number two, a quick disclaimer. I don't know if you do, but I'll speak for myself. I know nothing about these people in real life. I don't know if any of these people are bad people or good people. So I personally will only be speaking on them as characters within this movie. If that pisses you off, I apologize. That's all I know. I can't speak about them in any other way. Do you know anything about them that you want to touch on at all?
No, that was a good disclaimer. Let's CYA,
Yeah.
Cover your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Smart stuff.
So I just,
Great
again,
potting.
they might, who knows if they're terrible. I'm just speaking on them as characters in a movie that I pretty much enjoyed. So KG, how much of the story did you know going into this movie?
Honestly, none. I really didn't know much. The trailers were interesting. I knew it was a Ben Affleck, Matt Damon joint. I can't remember the last time they made a movie together, honestly.
Didn't they make that movie that you loved? The Knights movie.
Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, my COVID brain. Fuck. Yeah, The Last Duel. No one saw it except for me. It was a $100 million movie. I think it might have got 6 or 10 million. Like, it was nothing. Thank you for the reminder. Long weekend. Yeah, I was excited for the film. Generally, I had no idea what was going on, but I think the trailers did a good job of selling it.
I agree. I thought that I love when trailers have a really good energy to them, and I think that this one had that. And I didn't know this movie was directed by Ben Affleck until about halfway through the movie, once the banter really started kicking into overdrive. And then I was like, no, this feels like he's behind the camera too. He's not just in front of it. And I think that really serviced the movie. I think it does a really good job with kind of letting characters feel like real people, in that, like, they will cut each other down if they're buddies. I love that type of stuff. I kind of just like that idea of you're hanging out with these characters, not just watching their story. I love that type of stuff. Do you prefer that style of filmmaking in your dramas, or do you prefer to just kind of be further away from it?
No, it makes it more genuine, more relatable. Yeah, Ben does a very good job of making the characters approachable, vulnerable, and even like the dickish characters, you can see why they act a certain way, why they behave a certain way, and why for some people they might put on a facade, but for others they might be a little less guarded.
For sure. And I think one other thing that he does really well in this movie, this is something that's going to be like a later conversation on the pod, but something that you and I have noticed, of course, and anyone who's an observer of sports, whether it be casual or, as we would coin, sweaty, you know that, especially from the 90s and further back, sports figures and celebrities alike all have this genuine mystique about them, this legendary feeling, larger than life. There is an otherworldly alien charisma about them, their stories, and their circumstances. I think that no one else exudes that more in American sports history than Michael Jordan. You can maybe say Wilt Chamberlain, just because he unfortunately passed away so early. But, I mean, Michael is regarded as maybe the best athlete in American sports history and maybe even the world's history. He is a very controversial figure now more than he was back then because of the information lacking back then. There's just kind of so much about him. And one thing this movie does a really great job of, in my opinion, is it doesn't shy away from that. It makes everything feel larger than life. It makes it feel mysterious, legendary. It seems like you're watching something iconic. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
They even do that with the 80s. Like, they make the 80s seem cool. Now, we know the 80s were cool for many reasons. One unfortunate aspect of the 80s was all the cocaine, but we're not going to even focus on that. It's just kind of... And it adds to the energy of the movie for me. I just kind of... Like, from the opening credits of the film, I just found myself sucked in immediately. Would you agree?
Dare I say this might be my favorite film of the year?
So far, I think I agree with you.
I left the film, like, elated. This is, as corny as it sounds, like, this is fucking movies. You know? Like, this is cinema. This is film. I love me some John Wick, but I'm not going to John Wick for a multi-layered, faceted, in-depth story. They give you layers, you know? The onion is there. But I'm fine with John saying, I don't know, 60 words total, and just murdering everybody in the most beautiful possible manner. But that's what I'm going to that film for. But for Air, you got to get me in a seat for an hour and 45 minutes and sell me on a story that honestly most people wouldn't even think to tell a story about. But I was thinking about this before. You have mentioned to me, possibly on the pod, but definitely off mic, how you like the, how should I say this? Like the Hollywood of football and NFL, like the drama and the stars and like who's saying what to who. And that is me for basketball. I personally don't care about the game of basketball, but I am infatuated with the celebrity, how contracts work, how players work with other players, and particularly older basketball. Like we did a little run with one of our friends about the Last Dance docuseries that came out about Jordan, and it taught me so much more about him as a player, about 90s basketball, just how the game was different, and I was infatuated by it. So as a history guy myself, I also just like to see and like get involved in all of that. But a film like this, I'm already in on the premise because I like Damon, I like Affleck, I like what they've done with each other. But I know in their hands, they're not just going to tell this story to tell it. There's a reason they wanted to tell this story, so they're going to tell it to the nth degree, to the best possible way. And I think every actor in the film is amazing. Every performance is amazing. I can't speak for you, but there's a part towards the end where I even got emotional, and I did not prepare to get emotional during that scene and throughout the film. But just top to bottom, beginning to end, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think so far it's my favorite movie of the year, leaving a lot of room to breathe because we're still only in April, right? It's April.
It's only April
7th, I think, when we're recording this, or 8th. It's so far. You know what it was for me? I was talking to our buddy, the Ginger Gorilla, about this. It kind of felt like a bit of a palate cleanser for me. We've watched recently so many big blockbusters, animated movies, and kind of action adventure movies, and in that ilk, for a while now. And of course, we've watched stuff like what have I watched recently? I watched a bunch of the Oscar movies, like Tar, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
like a lot of grandiose things. There's something behind whatever you're watching. You might watch it, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I feel like you're trying to say, like, we watch a lot of movies, I think, because we're, like, supposed to, in a way. Like, it's supposed to make you feel like this, or think like this, or you're supposed to watch it because this performance is amazing, or because this guy's the talk of the town right now. But I feel like when you watch this, you're just watching art. Like, you're just watching a story being told so well. You know?
Last podcast, we talked about doing the basics and executing them as well as can be. I think that's what this movie does really well.
Like, exceptionally well. I think the beginning is amazing. You learn so much about Sonny Vaccaro, and he never talks about himself.
You're right, actually.
You know,
yeah.
The gambling scene is so telling. He's a charismatic guy. He plays it cool, but he loses a lot. And you learn all of that in such a short amount of time. And the whole time you're just enthralled. You're just watching. They don't sit down and say, Sonny, you have a problem. Or then they phase it to basketball and how you lose out on prospects. They eventually allude to that 2/3 into the film. But the first 20 minutes shows you that he's a nice guy. He really tries hard, but he has a lot of shit luck. And you're in for that kind of story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that he likes to take the gambles. He
Yeah.
loves going for it. Because he wins his first roll of dice in, well, I forget the name of that game.
Craps.
He that's craps, really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
We're going 90-10 on that. 90%
Boom.
sure.
Sure, let's go for it. He wins his first hand, but then he goes again. He doesn't take it out. He doesn't cash out because he's on a heater now.
And on his face, he's almost like you did it again, Sonny. Like you had it. You should have just stopped.
Yeah,
you know,
100%. And you can even see that kind of in that boardroom scene where or not boardroom. That's more of like a closet where they're talking about who they should sign from the '84 draft. Where it's like, all right, you could just play it safe and say Stockton and Barkley, who, by the way, pretty good signings. not as elite as Jordan, of course, but not bad. Especially Barkley. He had his own signature, which is still very cool. I'd love to have a pair of Barkleys right now. But he couldn't. He had to go for the one he believed in. He had to go for the big fish. And I loved seeing him study the film. It's something that I'd never noticed. In watching that, what year was that finals? I forget. I think it was 82.
Yeah, 1982.
The 82 NCAA championship game when Michael Jordan hit what would become the game-winning shot for the championship game. You zoom in on him and you see him. What great storytelling and what great film study. You just see him like flowing, being very relaxed. Where I would have poop in my pants in that moment, well, you see Michael Jordan just kind of swaying.
Yeah.
Fun fact for those listening, and for you, KG, I once took a could-be game-winning shot in a basketball game in high school, and it rimmed out. I was very upset with myself, furious even. It's just a little behind the scenes.
But hey, you took that shot.
I took the shot.
You took that shot.
Our friend, our buddy who we were talking to in a group chat earlier, he was wide open for an alley-oop, by the way, but our point guard passed it to me. I felt the faith. Anyways, that's all besides the point.
It's only high school. People don't forget. Whatever.
Yeah, people don't forget. You know that the point guard reminds me every time I see him. Every single time. It's
like I
awful.
said, people don't forget.
I hate it.
It's great.
It's the worst. So I love that you see the enthusiasm, and then you get to see the world of Nike basketball. Were you aware of how downtrodden the company was back then?
No. And honestly, I didn't even, because I wasn't thinking about it, that there's subdivisions within Nike. It's not just, like, you have the whole building of Nike, and I like how they said, like, on the 4th floor, they're having banger parties because it's the running division, they make all this money, and then basketball's like a joke. And you kind of notice that throughout the film, everyone in the basketball department, and again, because it's Hollywood, everything's with a grain of salt. We all have to do our own research on these stories. But the movie does a good job of making it seem like 4 people in the division actually care, and everyone else is there to get a check. You know, like there's one guy always playing the Ghostbusters game. There's other people always just kind of nodding off, doing whatever, taking smoke breaks, doodling. But it's really sunny. Jason Bateman's character, whose name escapes me at the moment, I have it right here. Rod Stasaris, I believe his name is. Strasser? Rob
Strasser.
Jeez. Rob Strasser, excuse me. And Howard White by Chris Tucker, right? Like, there's really 3 to 4 main guys that are doing everything to make this division a thing where other people are just kind of trying to get a check. And I think Ben does a good job of atmosphering that setting without throwing it in your face. But if you just look at the background enough, you're going to see the same 5 people doing the same 5 things over and over, which I thought was very creative.
Yeah, my only complaint would actually be not enough cigarette smoke in the office. We know they were doing it back then.
Inside, and like, where's the blow, too? Like, what do we... Just put it all out there.
That's what I'm saying. You also get this the sense of the sportswear landscape back then, as I mentioned earlier, and it's flipped on its head entirely.
Right.
Adidas being number 1 isn't that foreign now. He who shall not be named on this podcast kind of brought them back up into relevance. You know who I'm referring to.
Yes.
But pre-2016 Adidas, or pre-2015, Adidas was yikes. It was getting rough out here in these streets. No one cared about tracksuits. No one cared about
No, the tracksuit line was hilarious. And did it also make you chuckle how Phil Knight in the movie is like, no one wears basketball shoes other than basketball? And in my head, I'm like, that's it. It's literally what they wear now all the time. Like, it's insane how culture has changed
But he
so
was right.
much.
He was right. No one was wearing basketball
Well,
shoes
no,
back
at the
then.
time, yeah, but it's just so funny to see as a 2023 viewer. You're like, wow, has it completely and utterly flipped? Now it's like, if you wear a running shoe as a walking shoe, it's like niche. It's like retro.
Yeah. Well, it's so weird. Like that has actually become like the high fashion look is now running shoes, whereas everyone like the regular into sneakers person is wearing Jordans. Is wearing Kobe's, whatever. When I came up and was a big sneaker guy, I started off with like Nike SBs and Nike Dunks when I was scooting in these streets. But then eventually I switched over to like Jordans and stuff. That was kind of my entryway into all this stuff. Jordan 12 was my first Jordan. I still have them. They're cooked. They look like they were eaten by a lawnmower.
My nephew just got the breads for Easter from the Easter Bunny.
Oh, wow.
That Easter Bunny had money. Let me tell you. Let me tell you.
I'll be honest. That Easter Bunny's got better connections because back then it was easy to get shoes. You could go into the Nike store in New York and get Jordans back then in 2010, 2011. I'm not lying. Anyone listening, that really did happen. I got Red 12s.
I was there.
Oh no, you were there for a different thing. You were there when I was nasty. I got 2 sneakers with you.
Don't call yourself nasty while buying shoes.
No, I got like 2 pairs of pennies. Anyways, see, we're getting into my old bag. I'm like, well, my old sneakerhead days. Anyways, how I felt so enthralled hearing why people wore the other brands, because when we were coming up, Nike was the number 1 brand and probably still is. I don't know, maybe it's not, but we're not like in the sports world right now, so we don't necessarily know. But again, when we were coming up, it was all about Nike. Under Armour was having a small moment. Back then, why do people wear Converse? It's the all-star shoe. And then it's like, oh, what good branding. I never even thought about that. Hip-hop was wearing Adidas. So the Adidas tracksuit was big. And they had the best technology. The fact that the best technology was just an all-leather shoe, dude, you have no idea how much that broke my brain. I was like, what? For real? Like Nike had air technology already at that time that they were saying. They were mentioning it, and that wasn't seen as like the big thing. Oh, nuts to me. What was the other one? Was it just those 2?
It was Nike's.
It was Nike, Adidas, Converse. I think that's it. No?
I think that was about it.
Yeah. Because the German jokes about Adidas was
hilarious.
So good. Do you think back then? Let's put a young you, into an all-star college basketball player about to be drafted vibe. Who do you think you would have signed with?
Am I gonna get the same pitch from Sonny that Jordan got, or no?
Why not? Let's do it.
If I'm getting the same pitch, and I have as great as a mother as Viola Davis, then I'd probably go Nike because she single-handedly, if that is all 100% accurate, revitalized how athletes make their finances. Now, if I don't get Sonny's pitch, I'm probably going to go Converse because that's the all-star shoe. They have the best signers. Insane to me that those guys didn't have their own signature shoe. And now signature shoes are like, I feel as though almost every athlete, not every single athlete, but like anybody worth their weight, you're going to get at least one signature something. You may not get 10. But I'd probably have to follow that way. What about you?
Well, real quick on the Converse story, did you know that they all wore the same shoe, the Converse Weapon?
I did not know that, no.
There is a very cool commercial and a very cool outtakes filming of that commercial featuring Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, who those 2 did not like each other, Larry Bird, again, did not like Magic Johnson, Kevin McHale, and there might have been one other person, but I can't remember right now, all rapping in the same room together, because again, this is in the 80s, it's not high-tech now where you could everyone could film it on Zoom. Everyone's just kind of rapping this Converse song, and it's kind of cringe but kind of neat to see these legends were had to be out here pimping shoes together. This is not, it was so different back then. Magic Johnson should have had a signature shoe, but that wasn't the thing back then.
So they just got a flat rate for signing with the company.
I think so, which is nuts.
And then and that would just be an annual thing. Like as long as you're sponsored by Converse, you'll get a check.
And then free
whatever.
apparel, of course.
Yeah. So I guess then Jordan would revolutionize it by getting his own signature shoe, then getting percentage of that signature shoe. So yeah, okay. Bare bones.
I'm not sure if anyone else had a signature shoe at that point. I'm genuinely not sure.
That I can also not comment. I know for a fact that the making money off of your personal signature shoe, that was a complete unheard of thing.
It was groundbreaking. Michael Jordan, it kind of, it's so funny. This movie kind of solidified to me why Jordan is, aside from the obvious like objective standpoint of he was really good and won a lot, why Jordan is like held so preciously by people from that era. He was kind of a groundbreaking guy. He was a guard. He wasn't a big. No one below 6'9" was dominating basketball back then. It wasn't a thing. Even Isaiah Thomas, who is one of the 20 best players of all time, 6 feet tall, sure, but he wasn't dominating. He wasn't averaging like 30 a game like Jordan did. Like that just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Michael could do it. No one was making money per shoe. Michael could do it. No one crossed over from America to being a global phenomenon. Michael did it.
And I feel like he was just a pure... And this isn't like a knock to athletes now who give very generously to different charities and get involved with different organizations and even in political things. To each their own. You're allowed to do whatever. Hopefully you use all your finances well and help everybody you can. But I feel like between this film and the documentary we watched, Michael just kind of played basketball. And whether people were mad at him for doing it or supported him for doing it, I give him respect for just putting his head down, playing all 82 games, and being the best version of Michael on the court for everyone as possible. Now, could he have been more involved in different charities or political organizations? Sure, he could have. Did he want to? It really didn't seem like he wanted to.
Didn't seem like
And he just did what he wanted, and he did it so well that I feel like sometimes now, again, I am not a professional athlete, and it would be really cool to be one, but sometimes I'm looking at athletes, and it's like, wouldn't it be so cool if you didn't rest 40 games, and you just played the whole fucking thing? And, like, I always think about the family of 5, where the youngest kid really wants to go to this game. They find a way to get him there for his birthday, and one guy he wants to see won't play. And it's not because he's hurt, he's taking rest time or whatever, he's out doing something else. And it's like, just for a moment, if you take back all your global standings and all the 30 branches you want to have about your future endeavors, which are amazing, just like think about the 6-year-old that wants to see you that one night, you know? And I feel like Michael really encompassed that.
Well, you heard him talk about that literally. And then Kobe took that from him, and then LeBron took that from him. Now, LeBron post-prime, late prime, once his body started breaking down a little bit, he kind of had to do it. But those 3 guys were Iron Men. And Kobe, the same thing. Once his body started breaking down, he couldn't help it. He literally was tearing stuff left, right, and center.
It's now to a point where the league recently just changed the rules to get any awards. You have to play 65 games, a minimum of 65 games, which shows me how many guys did not do that.
Yeah, it's it's wild. The MVP this year, for the first time in like 20 years, I think it isn't going to play 70 games.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Everything has changed over time, but it's just wild to see
and
that sort of change.
There's a bunch of reasons why that could be the case. Nobody knows, genuinely. No one knows whether that's the athlete's decision, the team doctor's decision, the GM, the owner, the coach. Nobody knows why players sit out so much. But back then, it just wasn't a thing. And Michael specifically, I think what helped him out a lot is that he stayed out of any sort of controversy socially like that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely more of an owner's league too.
Yeah, back
90s,
then,
80s and 90s.
100%. Worse for the players, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he also was behind one of the greatest sports campaigns ever. I mean, Be Like Mike, Air Jordan. It's all so perfect. Like they just knew how to do it. That guy, was it Rob?
Rob Strasser.
Rob Strasser, apparently, is one of the key figures behind maybe the best single athlete sports ads ever. Like, that just helps. And this kind of tells the story. It's this guy who is a little down on his luck personally, is trying his best to just stay afloat at work, but you could tell you got something in there. You just kind of got to let it out. And it shows you his story. This guy was, I don't know, again, don't know if this is true. Just going to relay that. I don't know these people really. This character who his only way to connect with his daughter is bringing her free shoes from his job once a week.
Yeah.
That's so upsetting. And he even said if they closed down the division, he would still go and buy the shoes just so he had something to connect with her with.
Like, that was heavy.
Oh, is that the part that got you? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's the. I'll mention it a little bit, but
okay.
That part was really good though. But Bateman just crushed in that role.
He is such a good, and you think about his role in Ozark, it's a complete opposite character. Like
it is opposite for sure, and people can clown Jason like many other actors. Like you're always playing Jason in a role, or you're always playing whatever in a role. Like Ryan Reynolds are always the same in every role. But even if Jason Bateman brings that same like charisma and level to his acting or his role, I feel like all of his characters are still genuine. They have a dry sense of humor and sarcasm because they are hurt underneath, and it takes a little while to explain that. And in his better characters, ergo in Air, excuse me. Oh, we can edit that out.
Let it all out, baby.
Oh, excuse me. In Air, he does a really great job of finally just letting Matt Damon take the wheel and then trying to grab back on the wheel and say, like, just remember how many people you're really putting out on the ledge here. I support you. I know you have a good vision. I think you are smart. But let's say this is totally fucked. You don't really have much going on. I have like one very important person I need to take care of and make sure that I'm getting their love. Because his character in the film, I personally think, does not feel as though he's getting the love unless he's providing something regularly. And if he can't do that, he will lose all sense of love that he gets from his daughter. So he really becomes like wounded and like is on full display there. And you can finally see Damon's character also start to realize like, it's great that I want this, but like minus my fights with Phil Knight, now I'm talking to somebody on the ground level that has real like shit to lose. I really can't mess this up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of comes full circle in that one of the later shots in the film when Sonny is getting the call from Mrs. Jordan, he goes outside of his office to take a look at all the people that he's let down and that he's failed. And that because of him, literally single-handedly because of him, they're all going to lose their jobs. I think that just, it was a really good alley-oop, as it were.
Oh, nice pun. And it also really, I can't speak for you, but it did also affect me because I didn't think about it like that. I kind of just thought like it would be him losing his job. I know they mentioned over and over that like the division wasn't doing great, but I kept thinking like if he fucks up, you just get rid of him. And like hopefully you have enough to get a third-rate player, even though I know what happens in the story. But then when Bateman's character really takes a second to express it, as a viewer, I'm like, wow, he's got a point. Like this is way bigger than what we were led to believe the whole time we're following Damon's character. And I think in a way that was done directorially to show you that if you look at it all one-sided like Damon has been looking at it, you're not going to really think about all those other people till it's too late. And hopefully whatever you're trying to do works.
Who's your favorite character in this movie?
Oh, it's a tie between, honestly, I thought Chris Tucker was amazing. Like, genuinely amazing. I thought he was captivating in his role. I wish he was in more stuff. I think his charisma just oozes off the screen. And the scene that got me is when Damon starts apologizing to him in the phone booth because he's like, he's broken. He really thinks it's done. And my dumbass, I'm so invested in the film, I thought for a second, like, oh, I guess Jordan does side with Adidas. But I'm like, no, you fucking idiot. Like, you know how this works. But again, great movie storytelling. I would have to say, I think Damon does an outstanding job in the role as Sonny Vaccaro. I think he is a phenomenal every guy. I think he does every guy super well. And by every guy, I mean, like, somebody I can watch in the film and be like, I could see, like, I don't really see Damon here. I see just a guy I want to root for, a guy I want to follow, a guy I want to help. And I'm very happy that Affleck did not play the role of Sonny Vaccaro. I think he would have been bad in the role. I think Affleck is way better as a dick. I think he's very good at being arrogant. I think they play off each other amazingly. But I would have to say Damon 1, and then Chris Tucker was like 1A. Because I think his scenes, to me, he like stole his scenes. I thought he was so naturally charismatically amazing in his scenes.
Yeah, I think that. Oh, I mean, to me, the most grounding performance is Viola Davis, in my opinion, as Mrs. Jordan. Whenever she's on screen, I literally couldn't take my eyes off her.
That phone call.
Oh, she's so good in it. You know what? A bit of an odd choice, maybe. This actor's name is Julius Tenen as James Jordan. I can't help but wonder if this was a choice made by Michael. I haven't seen much stuff about James Jordan the person, but you've heard Jordan talk about him in the Last Dance documentary and how much he revered his father, even though he said his father was hard on him, and was very competitive and would pit him and his brother against each other. There was I think the word I'm looking for is like this like blue collar sincerity, humility, and charm to just kind of the way he was. Even the way he would just kind of smile at certain scenes of the pitches, check in on Michael every now and then throughout the pitch. Just his interactions, it kind of felt like the person who this movie's about made sure that his dad was shown in this light that he probably remembers him as.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really wonderful. Just wanted to shout that out. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see much of Damon Young as Michael Jordan. We only got to see his back, but I want to ask you about that in a second.
Please do.
I think Ben is great in this movie as Phil Knight. Very funny. Jason Bateman is great. But Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro makes me love this movie. Let me tell you why I love this movie. The speech at the end of this film, the climax of the pitch of this movie, and it's so great to see the climax of a movie not involve a beam in the sky, people punching each other, no guns, no shoot 'em ups, just a guy pleading his heart out to another guy, trying to get someone to believe in him the way that he believes in that guy. Sonny, you said it earlier. Sonny Vaccaro is an everyman. He is down on his luck. He is trying to succeed. He's trying to get the big win. He's trying to hit the jackpot of his career, of his life, as it turns out, and maybe of the lives of athletes in the future. And in that moment, this average everyman gets me as an audience member to believe in him, and he becomes as legendary in that moment for me as he believes Michael Jordan is going to be. What he does in that one scene is what, for me watching it, is what Michael Jordan's shot in the Carolina game did for him in the movie. I was like, oh, this is a legend. This guy is the guy. I just think that for right now, Matt Damon is my pick for best lead actor this year so far. I think he did a phenomenal job in this movie. And I think that without him, this movie probably doesn't work as well.
Yeah, and I think it's... I agree with everything you said and more, and I would hope that the Academy can recognize a quote unquote like everyman performance. You don't have to put on 40 pounds of makeup. You don't have to make a tour de force film that's 4 hours. You could tell a simple story and just act the shit out of it. And I think Ben does a great job of giving Damon a lot of room to breathe. It's like Damon was a huge... I could believe that Damon is a massive basketball fan after this. I don't know how much he knows or whatever. I don't know his level of fandom. But it just seemed like he truly cared to get this right. It seemed like everybody here truly cared to get everybody right. Of course, because it's Hollywood. I'm sure things were played with. But I just feel like all the characters, the actors, Ben particularly as the director, and of course working with Jordan, they all wanted to make the strongest, most impactful film they could. But nothing that had to be grandiose. It's a simple story. Tell it well. Right? Simple story, tell it well. People are going to watch.
Did you like that we didn't get to see Michael Jordan?
I absolutely loved it because it's not about him. It is about everything leading up to him. And I thought it was great. If they showed him in the movie, it would have personally ruined the entire film. because you'd be more focused on who this person is. Does he look like Jordan? Does he not look like Jordan? Did you happen to watch the Lakers show on HBO?
I have not yet.
I think it was called Showtime.
Showtime.
So I liked it. I thought it was fun, whatever. The guy they casted as Magic Johnson, scary, looks like Magic Johnson. I don't know how the hell they found this dude, but he was great. He was phenomenal in the show. I thought he was awesome. I hope he gets more projects. But he looks a lot like Magic Johnson, and that helps. You know, when you're casting for an iconic person, you got to make your actor look to their best ability like that person. I don't know how many people look like Jordan in the world, but I feel like if Jordan, who's acted in this film, who was the actor again?
Damon Young, I believe is his name.
So yes, Damon Young, it sucks that he didn't have a real lot of screen time. And I have a feeling that sometimes when he did speak, Jordan might have dubbed the lines, like the phone call, you know?
I thought so too.
And he could have, but I think it was so smart not to show him, because if you showed him, the movie goes away from Sonny and Phil Knight and their relationship and what Nike basketball is trying to do, and then it becomes a Jordan film. If you want to make a Jordan film, go make that. This was not the Jordan film. This is a story about an everyday man who wants to do something extraordinary, build this company up, and capture lightning in a bottle. And they did such a good job by never showing him. Focus on his parents, focus on everybody in the room, and you use him as like a tool, as a conduit to go between different people.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I had a take, in our little pre-pod meeting that we do right before we recorded, you asked me if I had any questions for this pod, and I said to you, I asked, is there anyone right now, sports figure wise or celebrity wise, that you would like to see kind of get an early version of their story in the future? Like, what was the moment leading up to their moment? And I told you, you asked me if I had any picks for it, and I told you I had a take about it, not necessarily a pick. My take is, with the way that we, not just us as a society, but as how celebrity has evolved nowadays, to where it seems to the point of oversharing how much we get to see of these celebrities' lives, how many times the camera's on them, how often we see them. It's really hard to cast someone as a celebrity, as a pop culture figure. It was weird to see. Austin Butler did a phenomenal job, but it is still kind of weird to see someone play someone else that you know what they look like so well. Now, I will say it works significantly better for people pre-social media, pre-celebrity in the social media age, because you saw less of them back then.
Yeah.
So it can kind of help, but like, I don't know. Can you imagine them doing a biopic about, which they probably will, about the Paul brothers one day? It's gonna be weird.
Don't do that.
I don't know. It just for a thought process of like seeing someone else play the Pauls, it's gonna seem disingenuous to me.
Yeah,
it's so weird. So it's like, and they're gonna make that movie, and if we're doing the pod at that point, still, we're probably gonna have to talk about it for money's sake.
That's so gross.
I know. You know they're going to. They're like the biggest social media stars ever. You know, like they crossed over. One of them, Logan's probably going to be a billionaire. Prime Energy does really well.
I know. I see children drink it way too much.
The Prime deal might be his version of Air.
All right. Continue your point.
I'm just saying.
This guy's out here saying Logan Paul's Michael Jordan, and it's, oh my God, you're crazy.
So that's kind of my thing. It's like, I don't know how many more of these stories we have left, man. Or I don't know how many of them we can have left where it'll feel really novel. We know everything now. We know everything about these people.
We know everything, and it's hard, like, how do I say this nicely? There was a Kurt Warner biopic. I did not watch it, but it got middling reviews. Kurt Warner, for those who may not know, he was a famous NFL quarterback. He was on the Giants, a few other teams. At one point, he was bagging groceries, literally, and then he got one more shot. He ended up playing on the St. Louis Rams. He won a Super Bowl. He went to the Cardinals. He went back to the Super Bowl. He had a great story. Movie got middling reviews. Zachary Levi played him. Okay.
It was
Uh,
it was that movie.
yeah,
I know
but
that was
that
about
movie,
him.
it looked like cookie cutter bullshit. Like it didn't look like a film. It looked like a Hallmark after school special. And I feel like with Air, it was a movie, and they made it like a film. And you could have made up the plot about anything, but like it was real actors, it was directed well, it was the scenery was done well. Like it didn't have a Hallmark charm to it. You know what I mean? It was gritty. It was rated R. It wasn't something. My nephew actually asked me because I was talking to him about his shoes. Like, could I go see Air? And I was like, absolutely not. Number one, you just won't get it. It's very confusing. But number two, they curse a lot. Like this is grown men's movie here. It's not for kids. So you have different versions of that. But like one that would be cool was Bo Jackson, a historically famous football player who has so many legends about him. They just made a documentary on about what is real and what is not real, because there's so many stories about this guy that people had to try to cross verify, and it basically ended with it's cooler to not know the man than it is to try to understand all the legend. And I thought that was fascinating. And I thought the biopic was great. Or I should say documentary, excuse me. The documentary was done better because you just have raw, honest conversation, and you have like etchings in the background of what could have done. Like they kind of told it through a comic book graphic novel style where they have people talk while they draw it up, and he looks literally larger than life. It was a 30 for 30. It was done very well, very creatively. But if you try to make that a movie, it's going to lose something, you know? It's not going to have everything it's supposed to. So when it comes to these kinds of biopics, we're never going to not get them. Hollywood loves them. But I feel like when you do a hardcore biopic, particularly around certain athletes, you get it almost squeezed into a realm of cookie cutter, got to follow certain rules to get the family of five out there on Thanksgiving to watch. Where I feel like Air is a little more, they're focused on building of a brand and like the business behind the business behind the business, and like characters you may not know about but want to do more research. Is what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you like
This is a story I never thought of and I never thought they would tell. But now that they
yeah.
told it, I am fascinated by it. You know?
I just can't think of any other athletes out there who have these types of stories. Although there is apparently something similar happened with LeBron James, from what I've heard. I think it was with Reebok though, but I could be wrong. I think Nike snatched him up too.
They did. Like the WWE would be cool. Honestly.
Yeah, but they'll never do that.
No, that's way, the laundry would be so dirty. But if you got a backstory of how many times it changed hands and the wheeling and dealing,
Yeah.
that would be really cool, because then you just see like at the end of the day, all this stuff is business. And yeah, like you might want the best for the people, the athletes, whatever. But these people want money. They want to be right so they get their nut. Like that's why they're doing this. That's why they're all human. That's why Phil Knight for 2/3 is like, fuck you, I'm not going to listen. This is outrageous. And at the end, he's like, actually, I was being greedy and selfish the whole time. Let's take the risk. That's why we built the company, whatever.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think I almost think you need like controversial figures as well to make these movies now, because they're the ones who kind of are shrouded in mystery. Like the good guy, we know everything about them already. That's why they're good, because nothing bad has come out about them. Like the most interesting human being right now alive that you could make a movie about is Vince McMahon. But he's also allegedly not that great of a person.
Yeah.
But he's too rich to make a real movie about. The Ringer tried doing it. I think they made a documentary. I'm gonna be honest. I love The Ringer. If they ever listen to this pod and ever want to hire us, I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying I would be surprised if they got as much information as they wanted to. I'm gonna guarantee you that they probably didn't.
Oh yeah, it's
I know
all
for
controlled narrative.
I know for a fact Bill was trying to dig deeper on some of the stuff that whatever's gonna be in that documentary, but they couldn't get that stuff, the real stuff. There's insane stories out there about Vince McMahon that I believe to be true. One of which, if you know, involves a briefcase. I'll let you know off mic. We're not talking about that here.
No.
It's insane, some of this stuff, but none of this will ever be unearthed. I actually give Michael Jordan a lot of props for allowing some of the footage to be in The Last Dance, because he knew, for a fact, he would be looked at as a monster.
Yeah.
For the way he treated his contemporaries.
Oh my god, yeah.
Literally, he was a bully. And bullying right now is the least hot thing you can do.
Not cool. Don't want to be that.
No, but it's still he still let it be done, and he let this movie be told. I did hear that the one provision, everyone has said it, I almost feel cringe talking about it on here, but I'm going to mention it, I guess. I heard his one provision to making the movie was Viola Davis being cast as his mom. Like, he was very like, okay, here you go, all right, now you can make the movie, I guess. Is there anyone from the past, I'll ask, that you would like to see a movie like this about at all?
I really can't give a good answer because I haven't really thought about it. Whoever
can I toss you some?
Yeah,
that I've thought about. These are going to be really basic film bro answers, but it's who I want to see stories told on. I want to learn about the greatest directors ever. I want to see their stories. I want to see Scorsese's life story told on a film. I want to see Tarantino's. I wouldn't... see, you got to be careful because some of the guys before that it can get a little dicey with like how they were as people. So it's like, ooh, that's maybe...
Well, even these guys, I think it goes back to what you're saying with Jordan. I think he's now at an age where he's been so, like, iconicized, if that's even a word. Or even after watching Last Dance, you could be like, well, he did, like, he was a bully, but he won 6 championships, so, like, it had to work.
Yeah.
And history's always, like, hindsight's always 20/20. Of course he can go back and say, was I the nicest I could be? No. Did I do what I had to do to win? Yes. Do I regret it? No, I don't. If you look at me differently, that's your choice. It's your prerogative. You're allowed. But what I did worked. It may not have been the best way to do it. It may not have been the perfect way, the most PC or whatever, especially during the time, but it got results. Now, if he was a dick and got 2 championships, it's way different. But because he's one of the most winningest people, the biggest shoe sales, I think people that we immortalize as they get older will be more lenient to allow their stories to be told, especially with some creative control. But I feel as though they'll be hands off and just say, you could tell the story now, because they've done so much and they're near the end. We already have a vision of them that even what we see, we're going to find a cool way to look at it. You know?
I agree.
Like, let's say Marty did some shitty stuff, and I have no idea. I have zero clue on this. But if I see it in a movie, I'll be like, well, I'm sure that led to the one shot in Goodfellas. So honestly, like, I can't be that mad. I really can't, you know?
Yeah, it's like the give and take of it all. Would you want to see movies made on artists now? We've seen so many on like on musicians, painters. I mean, filmmakers in terms of artists is what I mean.
I would like to see it done by other filmmakers to see how they would try to like capture their style. And I would want, like, I want it to be, like, as true as possible. And if the director has to come out, or again, let's say it's on Marty, and he has to come out and say, some of the stuff you see you're not going to like, or you might question whatever, but it was just what I did when I was getting older, whatever. Like, if he has to say that to feel better, that's fine. But whatever they do, I just want it to be as honest as possible. Now, again, with any film like this, you have to do your own research. I was actually just researching the other day how true air is. And for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Of course, they have some leisure and leeway with certain things. But I just want it to be raw and honest. That's why I'm going to these movies. I don't want it to be cookie cutter. I don't want it to be the ultimate story of how great he is. I want to see how he fucked up. I want to see who he might have ruined in the process. I want to see who he might have screwed over to get more progress and how that affected that person he screwed over and him later in life. That stuff is so interesting to me because on a small scale, we do that to each other all the time. We just don't really see it until later. And we always immortalize these people as perfect. They're probably worse than we are. Honestly, they got bigger things at stake. They make more money. They have more responsibilities. So sometimes it just feels good to watch a movie about someone. You're like, wow, I thought I kind of did either like some questionable things or like I'm not having the best week month. I could have done that. Like, yeah, he has a lot of success, but it seems like doesn't have a lot of friends. It doesn't seem like he's that happy. Greatness is kind of lonely, right? Segueing all the way back to Michael, like I'm sure there's people he's treated that he's tried to rebuild those relationships. Isaiah Thomas is the number one.
He's still not friends with Charles Barkley, dude.
And Charles Barkley, like, that's insane to me.
That was his best friend in the league. They would play golf together. And all because Charles said that he wasn't running the Hornets well. Or at that time, the Bobcats. Michael Jordan just stopped talking to him. And now there's pride in there, so you can't be the first one to reach out. And it's like, dude, you guys are in your 60s, maybe?
Like 50s.
50s-ish. Like,
And Barkley may not have been totally wrong.
He wasn't wrong. Michael Jordan's selling the team because it's been going so bad for so long. Even with their most recent guy who they thought was a superstar but isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. Oh, so I'll ask you this: what if I could give you one director you want to see a telling of their like this type of moment where it's right up until their big break? What director would you want to see? Just give me one guy.
There's so many choices.
There are a lot. Director or actor. I'll even give you actor.
There's just like so many playing. I would like to see maybe like a Bryan Cranston joint.
Oh, interesting.
Because
I didn't think of that.
He had a late period renaissance, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like a big
him
turn.
And Carell.
And he's always been really good. But it was just like once he got Breaking Bad, that's when everybody's like, oh, he's amazing. But I'm sure he was on Malcolm in the Middle, one of our favorite shows.
Yeah.
He was just like a jobber, and then he got that. But I would say for actor, probably Bryan Cranston. I feel like his story would be interesting. For director, like, I love David Fincher. I don't know how crazy his backstory is. Yeah. But maybe a little James Cameron action.
See, I thought you were going to say Eastwood.
Really?
I don't know why. I just thought that you might say him.
He would also be fascinating because he's been in Hollywood forever.
Yeah.
Literally
he's directing
forever.
his last movie.
Yeah. Well, he is like 1,000, so.
He's in his 90s.
He's like 96, man. But good for him.
I know, it's great.
But what say you?
For me, who I consider the American GOAT, Scorsese, would be my director choice. Even though, again, I don't know that his... And we saw... I didn't watch this movie yet, but we saw Spielberg's upbringing most recently. He captured it himself. In terms of actors, again, this is one you kind of got to be a little careful with because we're finding out some pretty unsavory things about some of these people. So for a man, I'm going to go with Steve Carell because he was a late bloomer as well. Ooh, I'm going to change my answer. Jim Carrey.
Ah, I like it.
He was my original favorite actor as a kid.
And he had a crazy peak in the 90s.
In all time.
I think he had
peak,
2 or 3 #1 films at the same time,
which is like unheard of. That's insane as a comedian.
Yeah,
and he's like an all timer in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with him. For an actress, I mean, is it really lame to say Meryl Streep would be an interesting watch?
Nah, that would just be a good time.
Yeah, I feel like just learning how did you become that good?
How did you become so beloved?
You what happened? How did that even
teach me how you get nobody angry ever?
Yeah. Oh, you could also throw a little Angela Bassett in there. Shout out Angela. She should have won the Oscar.
Yeah.
But anyways, besides the point.
Even Viola Davis, honestly.
Oh, another good one. Maybe a little Lupita Nyong'o action, but that's a little selfish of me. Sorry. Just personal reasons. Find her quite talented. So, there's a bunch of people that I could see right now early stories of. But like the young people coming up now, it's like, no, we've seen it all. We've heard all the stories and interviews. We're also quick to share. But yeah, we surprisingly, this was another one. I thought this pod would be kind of short, but we have gone an hour so far.
Tangents, hell of a thing.
Would you say this is an upper echelon Affleck directed movie?
Yes. I would say it's definitely one of his best. I would put this with The Town. The Town is probably my favorite movie he's made.
It's not just my favorite, it's his best movie that he's made.
Yeah, it's like really, that's like his heart and soul.
Yeah.
Like he cast, what was Bill's joke? He cast people in that movie that are still in jail. Like that's how Southie he got when he went to Boston for that. I would say, just super side note about the film, one of my favorite scenes in the entire film is when Matt Damon is talking to, I believe it was Jordan's coach, George Raveling.
I know what you're talking about.
Was he the Olympics coach?
A Team USA assistant coach.
All right, he was a Team USA assistant coach. I thought the filmmaking in that scene was astonishing. Because to me, he made it seem like two guys who were drunk talking about the good old days, and the camera kept zooming poorly every time they would transition to talk to each other. And I thought that was so smart because the more beers you have, the more buzz you are, the more clouded your conversation gets, and the less you're focused literally on either each other or your conversation. And I just thought that was a thing of beauty to see in the film.
Yeah, I would totally agree. A quick side note for people who have A&E and maybe would like to learn about an all-time wrestling legend. One of maybe in my opinion, the greatest good guy talker or promo guy ever. His name is Dusty Rhodes. Rest in peace, one of the GOATs. His son is my current favorite wrestler, Cody Rhodes. And his downfall at WrestleMania ruined my mood for 2 days, and I'm not kidding. Last weekend, Sunday and Monday, I was in a very bad mood because I felt like storytelling had failed me for the first time in my life. The story of his father, who I don't know a lot about, but I've seen his stuff and he's really good. His story is being told on a documentary on A&E tonight that I'm going to, once we are done with recording this, I'm recording. I'm going to queue up and watch the crap out of it. If you ever wonder about watching like an old wrestler's tale, maybe you should check it out. I've heard they're really good, these docs.
That sounds interesting. I might have to queue that up.
Just throwing it for you and anyone out there who's listening. Because old wrestlers are fascinating.
Yeah.
Old athletes in general are fascinating. Anyways, there is a crow cawing outside my room. Can you hear that?
Oh, yes, I can. It's the hour. It's the witching hour.
I apologize to anyone who is... I can't really do anything about it. I'm sorry. So, is there anything else you wanted to touch on, my friend, before we get out of here?
Go see Air. Go to the theater. See it. Experience the movie. Don't wait till streaming. This is a theater movie. Go.
This is one of those movies where I felt happy that I went to go see. And just a quick recap for people listening. I watched, in a 24-hour span, technically 3.5 movies. I watched Mario, which is not as bad as the Rotten Tomato scorers say. I think it's a pretty fun movie. I watched the second half of The Bad Guys, which is a pretty solid animated flick. It's on Netflix. Animation is really good in it. I watched Air, which made me feel the best spending my money. And I watched Dungeons and Dragons, which is a really fun action-adventure movie. You would like it.
You can give me a review off, Mike.
Yeah. Quite a few practical effects. You would have been like, oh. It would have tickled your fancy. I don't know where your fancy is, but it would have tickled it.
Well, hopefully you don't tickle that for me.
KG, I know pretty soon there is going to be a drop of an album or EP. I don't know the names of those things. I'm not in the music biz.
It's an LP for long play, but yes.
LP, we're long playing it. Yes, sir. Coming soon from a band not just near you, it's in you. You are in it. It's your band.
The innuendos tonight are insane, my friend.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where can people find that music? It's at the beginning and end of our pod.
At Above the Moon Music on Spotify, Instagram, Apple Music, wherever you get your stuff. That LP will be coming sooner than you think.
And please, if you are listening to this on whatever podcast app you listen to, please give it 5 stars and leave it a review or a thumbs up if your podcast app doesn't work with a star rating. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't like planning things out on pod, but I'm going to try putting out small clips onto the YouTube channel to see if that can gain any traction. I'm going to try. It takes a lot of time, but I'm going to try. So be on the lookout for that if you want short snippets from the pod going forward. Just to play while you're dusting your room or something. I don't know. You're cooking some onions, maybe. Just some stuff to listen to in the background. That'll be possibly out. The full pod will be out this week. The clips might not be up till the week after. I'm just going to be honest. Workload. I'm going to try and spread it out. But if you've listened all the way to this point in the podcast, thank you so very much for listening. next month we haven't decided, I don't think, what we're doing, but I feel like there's some joints coming out next month.
We got things brewing.
Yeah, and then it'll be like blockbuster movie season after that. Oh wait, is next month Spider-Verse?
No, it's in June. It's the first week of June, I believe.
Okay, so you know what's happening in June.
Yeah, because you got Spider-Verse, Beast Wars, and something else comes out that I think that same weekend.
There's also a possibility, we could talk off mic more about this. We could do the original Spider-Verse movie for next month if we wanted to. If we don't see anything in the theater that we really, really want to watch. I just don't remember what's out next month, so I'm just throwing that out there. But we'll talk more about that off mic. Once again, I'm rambling now. Once again, thank you all very much for listening. I have been one half of your host, known as Buff Charmander, joined as always by KG.
Until next time.
Stay safe, and as always, stay sweaty, my friends.